The world's most significant economies include China. Not just because of its size, but also due to the impact it has on its neighborhood and the way it interacts with other economies across the world. Its massive foreign exchange reserves, unfavorable foreign policy, and of course its population, which accounts for a fifth of the world's population. China would still get a lot of attention if it weren't the second largest economy in the world because of how significantly it affects our daily lives. If you take a look around you right now, you will likely find dozens of products that were produced in Chinese factories and are significantly raising your standard of living. This includes probably the device you are using to watch this video right now. The legitimacy and dependability of their economic data is something that has a very serious impact on the way that we manage our own economy, despite the fact that we may or may not prefer to recognize that we are economically dependent on China. A more rosy picture of Chinese economic development may be conveyed by various levels of government by manipulating economic data from Chinese institutions. Anything from exaggerating output figures to falsifying employment data could fall under this category. Different levels of government in China would attempt to achieve this for a number of very sensible reasons, including increasing money for regional initiatives, winning the favor of party officials by achieving success, and on a global scale, projecting a powerful image to both potential allies and foes. Much more damage than just bruises can result from misrepresenting economic data, allocating credit where it isn't truly due, and a few egos. In China, it has the potential to significantly lower billions of people's standard of living. In addition, I believe it's crucial to acknowledge that fabricating economic figures is not, by any means, a China-specific issue, even though China has the second largest economy in the world and is known for it more than any other nation. As a result, it's a terrific case study to use to learn what to look for and determine whether any other economies are acting similarly. What evidence is there, then, that China is fabricating its economic data? What issues do these numbers bring about for the real economy? And finally, if the official statistics are inaccurate, what indicators can we use to assess an economy's genuine prosperity? After completing all of that, we can compare China's performance to its current place using data that was gathered independently of official outlets, by placing it on the Economicstatistics National Leaderboard. Every sort of scientist, even social scientists like economists, must take the quality, precision, and relevance of the data and information they are working with into account while evaluating the material. This is typically demonstrated by picturing a dartboard with accurate and precise data points. They'll be closely clustered around the bullseye. If the data is accurate but not exact, they will be concentrated around the bullseye with a lot of space between each shot, whereas if the data is precise but not accurate, they will still be densely clustered but in one corner of the board. It can be challenging to evaluate whether data is relevant, but to expand this example, the arrangement of your darts on a dartboard would be essentially irrelevant if you were actually playing a round of golf. This example truly bothers me since it's so simple to conflate accuracy and precision. So let's use an illustration that real-world economists might employ. Think about the GDP of a nation like Australia. Australia's output was estimated by the World Bank to be 1,542,660 million in 2021. The accuracy of that number, which is accurate to the nearest million, may not be all that high given that the IMS estimates Australia's total output at 1,724,787 million while the UN estimates it at 1,423,473 million. All of these projections cannot be true. Here, the difference is almost 300 billion, or about the size of Portugal's economy. The reason for this is that each of these organizations uses very different methods to gather and process the data required to estimate GDP figures, demonstrating that there is a great deal of latitude in how such data should be interpreted even when dealing with a very open and trustworthy nation like Australia. Furthermore, these data actually commit another error that economists need to watch out for. They oversold their summary. An organization would never be able to estimate the overall output of any country's economy to within 1 million. Yep. The reader can get the false notion about how precise these data actually are based on how they have expressed them up to this point. These kinds of errors are frequently made by economists as well as by those who base important judgments on this information. Be aware that it's not accurate to the nearest $1 million, but if you ever perform calculations like this on your own, be sure to round to the next multiple of 10 so that you may claim to produce better economic figures than the author. The applicability of Australia's GDP estimates now relies on your goals. The GDP estimates are great for giving you a basic idea of the size of the Australian economy. However, whether you want to understand Australian living standards or the scale of the German economy, these numbers aren't at all pertinent. In any case, not without more details. Now, aside from deceiving you into learning something about statistics, it's crucial to comprehend the accuracy, precision, and relevance of any figures you see because, even if they aren't deliberately falsifying their records, there is a possibility that they may have been carefully chosen to mislead you. Small inaccuracies like this can be balanced out if the individuals gathering and processing the data do not have any particular biases, particularly if the data points are gathered widely and in huge numbers. For all levels of government in China, however, there is a very strong motive to select individuals who project a more favorable image. The inaccuracies can add up to yield net findings that are very significantly off if those buyer data points are transmitted up the ranks to become aggregated international values. Beyond that, it is challenging to acquire GDP figures. I believe it's important to note that the World Bank uses the statistical capacity score to keep track of each nation's capacity to generate accurate economic data. China's rating has historically been below mediocre. In 2004 and 2015, it received a grade that placed it in the 38th percentile of nations with low and moderate incomes. China, however, came in at the 83rd percentile in the 2016 rankings, which means that only 17% of low and middle-income nations were able to create more accurate aggregate data figures than it was.